everyone. This is Sandi Ault reporting from the wild, and this is the audio podcast companion to my blog on Substack. This is episode 9, MONEYBAGS.
'Cause I like sports cars.
The United States government is a big fat bag of money. Ideally, it's so much more than that, but at base, it's a money machine, taking in our tax dollars and then doling those tax dollars out in distributions designated by Congress and overseen by administration bigwigs and agency heads. It's a money bag that is perpetually being filled and emptied, both at the same time. The money we put in the bag as taxpayers is supposed to be spent to benefit us all in myriad ways, from providing air transportation safety to ensuring air and water quality, from providing and enforcing standards of food integrity to preventing the spread of communicable disease. From defending our nation militarily from aggressors to providing a system of justice bound by the laws set forth in our Constitution. And one of my favorite things, maintaining and protecting our nation's natural resources. In the last 7 weeks and change, however, a majority in both the Congress and the Senate has fulfilled some collective sadomasochistic fantasy and become Reek to their master in the Oval Office.
Reek! That's a good name for you.
They hope we won't notice their collective dog collar as they scurry behind their dominator, eager to tear off some of their own flesh, or more likely ours, at the master's whim. Far be it from these reeks to exercise their own power of the purse, let alone create legislation. And yet, they will sit up and do tricks on command in order to prevent the richest of the rich from having to pay a share into the federal money bag.
'Cause I'm worth a fortune.
And they recently tied themselves into knots to achieve this sleight of hand, declaring the entire congressional calendar a single day. This a sudden rollover and play dead abdication of their power to their evil overlords. It was quite the self-abasing ruse, even for as low a life form as the Reeks have become. The overlords shamelessly suborn deposits into their own personal money bags as a result of their power. This goes on boldface in front of us without scruples or moderation. The White House is now a bribe depot for money bags offered up to the master, who holds the chain on everything and everyone in government and the corporate world. Want to wear a dog collar and hand the chain to Ramsay Don Trump Bolton the Cruel? You can actually dine somewhere in a crowd of reeks near our Game of Thrones-like savage for a mere $1 million. You want to be the only lapdog licking at his elbow for a half hour or so while he eats? That's a $5 million money bag. Or you can buy a collar and chain by investing in his crypto hustle. You can make a film about his handler wife, rerun the reality show he starred in to give him royalties, and disempower your newspaper who might have reported the truth about him. You can buy shares of his social media disinformation and propaganda platform. You can spend money at his properties or donate to his committees. You can buy his Bibles, his guitars, his sneakers, or his other merch. If you're the richest two-legged on the earth, you can pledge $100 million more to his campaign organizations, so he will sell your cars on the White House lawn when an entire globe full of car buyers have scorned and hate you, and as a result, the products you manufacture. And if you can't afford to offer any of these money bags, there are plenty of commingled money bags littered across the White House, where you can deposit some big bucks to buy yourself a seat on the floor, drooling and being dominated at the REIT convention. The billionaires axe away the potent parts of our government so it will be enfeebled too, and unable to produce results for the citizens. One hitch, the government moneybags need a constant flow of funds for the cabal at the top to keep up the lifestyle.
'Cause I like jet planes, and I like the beach,
And the reeks don't want the richest among us to have to pay for that. If anything, they believe the burden to keep the money flowing to the oligarchs at the top must fall upon the shoulders of the wage earners at the bottom. But wait, the moneybag system that funds our government still won't work if the uber-rich don't pay a share. The money will go out faster than it comes in. So the Reeks promise to fix this by firing all the government employees and taking away or reducing funding for the kinds of earned benefits and quality of life programs that we pay into. Things like Medicare and Social Security, things like the VA, Medicaid, and USAID, things like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Food and Drug Administration, and the Centers for Disease Control. Things like the national parks and public lands. And right there, our nation's natural resources are also a big fat bag of money. But in this case, the goal has historically been to keep these treasures safe and preserved, an immeasurable form of natural wealth for all the citizens of our nation to share ownership of equally in perpetuity. These include our national parks, monuments, historic sites, and wild lands and waterways. But for the billionaire set, these are just big money bags waiting to be ransacked and robbed. To that end, they have cut away the flesh that protects these gems, disemboweling the agency that protects the environment, firing all the protectors and caretakers that guard the riches. This week, the courts objected to the latter and handed down rulings that these federal employees must be reinstated. We will see if the evil overlords comply, but even if they do, be wary. The greed lords have painted a moneybag target on our most beautiful places, even on the water we drink and the air we breathe. And they will not relent in seeking to cash in for their own benefit and not ours. There is not an ugly enough word for the rapacity that we are seeing in this regime. Our language lacks a term with the breadth and depth for the evil at work. The image of the inhuman imposter who somehow garnered enough votes to take a second turn at destroying our democracy is beyond our worst words. Profound evil does not reach deeply enough. Hideously cruel fails to encompass the breadth of it. Horrific, monstrous, villainous, they all fall short. Nothing suffices to accurately name the Trump-Musk-Vance incarnation of evil. Nothing reaches far enough to portray the immensity of their greed. We watch with horror as the Orange Thing and his chainsaw-wielding Nazi handler line up cars in front of the White House and make a shameless attempt to reinforce the riches of the richest man in the world.
I love Tesla.
We gasp as the evildoer in the Oval Office prepares to deport a man rightfully in this country while offering a gold card to anyone, including Russian oligarchs, very nice people, by the way, who will pay $5 million. We are stunned in disbelief as the economy we are forced to participate in now is hacked away at limb by limb and subsumed in a siege of systemic structural violence and inhumanity. We are asked to fund a regime that not only ignores but argues for suffering, starvation, disease, poverty, and war. We are expected to line up this April 15th and refill the money bags so these diseased fungal substitutes for human beings can harm not only our reputation in the world, but other countries along with our own, as well as our air, our water, our elderly and disabled, our dignity as a nation. The list could go on, and we don't even know the extent of the harm yet. It is not enough to say that the White House is for sale. It is not adequate to say that they are destroying the government so they can piece off more of it through privatization to glut their money bags, as in the attempts to demean and cripple Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. It will never be sufficient to say that they have arrested and even reversed all the momentum, the shared prosperity, the global goodwill, the climate activism, and the social and economic gains we achieved in the past 4 years. The aggression, the caustic, open, and boundless corruption, the horrific enabling of evildoing by those charged with serving us in Congress and higher office, the perversion and ugliness, we just don't have the words, or likely, for most of us, the ability to fully comprehend and adequately respond. I don't have a story that matches the inexhaustible, incalculable evil of the moneybags masters or their grinning, submissive reeks. But I do have a story about what can happen to what is precious when it is not protected. There are places out of sight in the American Southwest that hold inestimable and irreplaceable fortune. For over 3 decades, my husband and I have trekked time and again into the deepest deserts to remote places without roads or designations on maps, carrying our own water and provisions on our backs with the goal of beholding the art and dwellings of the first people on this continent. Their footprints still exist on sandstone slabs. Their pots, their bows and arrowheads, their atlatls, remnants of their baskets and their sandals, and more still lie on and beneath the surface in the arid, sandy soil. The basic structures of their homes and villages still stand, and their creative visions still awe and inspire us from great stone panels along the walls of canyons and cliffs and on the faces of great boulders along dry streams and riverbeds. On these backcountry expeditions, it was, for years and years, highly irregular for us to see another human being, sometimes for as much as 3 weeks. We would go as long as our water held out, and if there was a desert rain, we could stay a while longer by filtering the water that pooled in stone basins. And oh, the wonders we would behold. The advent of GPS and sturdier off-road vehicles gave birth to a new generation of desert rats, as we called ourselves. We could go farther in to even more remote places, carry more water, and locate the most gorgeous rock art panels and ruins by numbered coordinates shared among outdoors enthusiasts on the internet. But even once these technological wonders began to make this inspiring ancient world more accessible, there were still some priceless panels and ruins that required advanced skills for climbing, rappelling, and extended treks on foot to reach, and so remained relatively unknown. Over the years, we have made pilgrimages time and again to some of these precious gems. And welcome protections for many of these places came when Obama made Bears Ears a national monument. Obama went further and shared the work of managing and protecting this new monument with the tribes whose ancestors lived there from the first days of human habitation on this continent. We hoped the monument designation would help to stem the damage that might have occurred to fragile and precious sites in the face of all the new technology, making wilderness exploration easier. But it was not totally successful. One late summer, we found ourselves revisiting a secluded and especially beautiful canyon where you could camp on the rim right next to a stacked stone lookout tower complete with window openings from which you could see almost 100 miles. This, no doubt, was the station for sentinels who warned the villagers in the cliff dwellings below of invaders, coming weather events, and more. We had come to see this canyon, littered with primitive ruins whose creation spanned hundreds of years, to see its beautiful and pristine panels on the cliff walls. Getting to most of these required rappelling down sheer rock faces, but some of the more recent ruins could be accessed by some careful climbing. I remember pulling up to the normally deserted rim site where we had camped alone over the decades to find a trio of tents pitched in a semicircle around a big campfire pit filled with ashes and broken glass. Discarded beer bottles lay scattered around. One man was packing up and pulled a queen-size mattress out of his tent and pitched it into the bed of his four-wheel drive truck. Others stowed massive coolers in another truck as they broke camp. They were friendly enough and wanted to know if we had ever been there before. We talked with them and said we'd been coming here over the years, but had never seen anyone else there. "We found it on a map on the internet," one guy said. "There's lots of cool stuff down in that canyon if you can climb." These three guys did not seem nefarious, but their presence alone and the mention of the map on the internet made our hearts sink. A previously relatively unknown museum of antiquities was now exposed to all comers. Worse still, the first Trump administration saw this gorgeous, far-removed area as a money bag. First, he disrupted the BLM by forcing its employees to move out of the path of power and the deal-making in Washington, where they could have better protected the rich resources of this region, and relocated the headquarters to Grand Junction, Colorado. Many did not move, so the workforce of the BLM was reduced. Trump also slashed the size of the monument from 1.5 million acres to 228,784 acres, leaving many of its most vulnerable sites without the protections needed. Vast swaths of the formerly safeguarded areas were leased for profit to big corporations for mining, fracking, and drilling for oil and gas. Too much of Bears Ears was soon scarred by intersecting roads and barbed wire fences, roads which led through areas adjacent gorgeous ancient sites. And here is where my wild story of desert wonders intersects with the money bags held by the greedy. It wasn't that time on the rim when we surprised the beer-guzzling campers, or even the increasingly similar situations that followed, that showed us the worst of what the desire to grab riches from the public domain could do to the ancient and beautiful treasures on public and tribal lands in the Southwest. We didn't see the full picture of the harm all at once, but we began that day to see small signs. The erosion of the conditions of the most reachable ruins, signs of digging for pots and arrowheads, and scarring and vandalism of rock art panels. Soon, though, we beheld an unforgettably clear picture of the money bag mentality in an area that had been removed from Bears Ears and its protections. It was deep within some sublime cliffs miles from civilization in harsh, high desert land. There, along a dry stream bed that only runs with life-giving water during the monsoon season, dozens of magnificent rock art panels spanning thousands of years of history gave witness to the holiness of the wash to the people who first lived there. There, on cliff walls, Barrier Canyon-era art existed alongside dozens of more recent generations of artists' work, depicting powerful shaman, magical animals, bolts of lightning, spirals, herds of mountain sheep, and strange alien-like people wearing elaborate jewelry and headgear. We had journeyed to this site many times. During an expedition we made a few years after the Trump delisting of that area, we witnessed not only vandalism, where idiots had carved inane crap into the panels, but tragic evidence that someone with means had come with big industrial rock saws and lifts and literally cut massive slabs of stone containing the rock art panels away from the side of the cliff. And for what? To take them home and own them? Display them in their homes where none but those they knew could see? To them, these beautiful and sacred rock art panels, the stories and art of the ancestors of the tribes that still live there in our Southwest, were just money bags to be taken home and hoarded, to be taken away from all of the people and allotted to just those with the means to hire heavy equipment and laborers and send them into this remote place to cut away the history and legacy of a hallowed site, all in service of greed addiction. While there are no words for the extreme selfishness and covetousness that would prompt this kind of theft and destruction, there are also few words potent enough to describe the sadness we felt to behold the devastation of our shared beauty and history. The sense of grief for us was profound. The anger, looking for a place to fix on, could not find a target from which we might derive some sense of justice. The loss, not just for us, but especially for those whose ancestors created the beauty that had been ripped away from its home, was ineffable. So many of us, for generation after generation, had come to this sanctified place to behold beauty and share in the wonder of the records of our first people. But someone saw this as a money bag and, like the thieves at the top of our government, stole it from the people to whom it rightly belonged. They stole it too from the indigenous people whose dignity has continuously been assaulted for hundreds of years in the name of seizing money bags for the rich and the white and the powerful. Thieves with means and power defaced a prehistoric shrine and stole its iconography from history, where the record is now lost forever, so that it can only be seen and shared among the money bag holders who had the power to take it. And they stole it from the wild, to which this beauty belonged. Now we face another kind of defacing, destroying, vandalizing theft. The theft of our democracy, of justice, of our preeminence among nations for leading, giving, and upholding values upon which we were founded. We face a theft of our esteem, of our due regard in the world. We face, instead of friends, neighbors, and allies, suspicion, wariness, fear, and animosity across the globe. And we face an unbelievable realization that nearly half of our own citizens chose to opt for this, for money-bag-driven greed zombies and criminals, and the open objective of deleting our democracy from the great panel of our history, scarring it, cutting it away, hacking at it, and corrupting it with endless slashes and cuts until it no longer can exist. The money bags pile up at the White House, and for the crypto bros and the billionaires and the Trump-Putin family, and for the richest person in the world who runs this country and seeks to destroy it and all democracies. The money bags pile up here as the bodies pile up in Ukraine and in poor countries where a small portion of our formerly great wealth used to sustain life and fight famine and disease. The money bags pile up for the reeks in the GOP as the body count begins to mount from the needless spread of measles, of bird flu, of tuberculosis, not only in other countries, but here in this once great one. The money bags pile up for the string-pulling puppeteers who created an ascent from nothingness for the unqualified vice ghoul who stands next in line behind the bloodsucker in chief and beside the techno-fascist with the most money bags of all, to whom they answer. The beauty and the treasure is being cut away. The money bags are piling up in the open as the rich laugh at the rest of us suckers who together have created the biggest money bag of all, the wealth of our nation, in every sense of the term. The scars from the hacking, the vandalism, and dismembering can never be healed. The demons destroying democracy openly drool over their money bags as they promote car sales
I love Tesla
and cryptocurrency from the White House. They also flagrantly protect, pardon, condone, and even celebrate pedophiles, human traffickers, rapists, and drug lords because these fiends have money bags and no morals and can be made into reeks who will pay into more money bags too. The hellhounds feast on hate, aggression, degradation, and bullying. The GOP reeks in our Congress and throughout government have lost all compassion and sense of humanity. They are corpses decaying before our eyes as they shuffle along as a herd, screeching lies and fouling the halls of the place where they dwell. Evil prevails in the places of power in our nation today. Money bags abound, open for any to buy a perch near those in control. No evil is too great for a pardon, and no bribe too obvious to be welcomed. No corruption is too conspicuous. After all, what is important is the money bags growing at the feet of the devious demagogues. We have already lost too much. Too much has already been cut away, defaced, deformed, vandalized, and stolen. We need to rise up together to stop it. In past posts, I've suggested some wise leaders with invaluable ideas and information. I've urged you to seek out groups in your communities with whom to partner to resist. I've offered advice from a wilderness, wildland, and outdoor survival perspective to help prepare you and strengthen your own position. And I have warned you about the zombie reeks among us who helped make it possible for the money bags to pile up in place of our democracy, for the rape and the theft and the greed and the imperialism, for the racism and the otherism, for the warmongering and the hate to make its home in the hallowed halls of our country. There is growing resistance. There is growing awareness. There is growing discontent and determination to reverse course in any ways we can. Stay connected to those in your community who are doing things to defend democracy. Join them and make yourself ready. While we all aspire to prosperity, most of us aspire to prosperity for us all. The money bags piling up in the White House and all the places of power in Washington, D.C. do not belong to the corrupt scum who now collect them, like tithes to false gods. This has been Sandi Ault reporting from the wild. You can read and subscribe to the companion blog to this podcast on Substack. I enjoy including my own original music on these podcasts, and I hope you like that too. And if you want more stories from the wild, look for my Wild Mystery Series in book, audiobook, and ebook. You can start with any book in the series and go wild. If you like this blog and podcast series, I'd love to have your help building my audience. If you are not already one, please become a subscriber. And if you would, please share this podcast with your friends. Let's build a community and keep in touch through notes and comments. We'll call ourselves the Wild Bunch. Take care.
I'm so tired of working and saving. I'm just slaving to earn every dime.